Formally, welcome everyone. Thank you again for joining us on the Launchpad to Leadership Candidate School Series. This is our third session, and today we're going to be talking about creating your team, building your team, and the skill sets behind that. As every session, we try to have a special guest, and so our guest this weekend, oh my gosh, on this session is MVP Nick Mayrand. Hey, Nick.
Hey, all happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we've done introductions a couple of times, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again because we do have some new people on this call, and I think it's really helpful, right? Part of the session, beyond just the skills that we're talking about and some of the learning, is also to kind of get to know one another, right? Chances are, if you're pursuing a leadership role within this organization, you're going to be working on teams with probably some of the people on this call, right? They've all self selected that you're interested in leadership. So the more we can get to know each other now, help start creating those relationships, hopefully for the future, and creating better teams for a better organization. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and do introductions. Just same as last time, if you were here, share your name, where you're from, so your state and your chapter, what's your current role, and what future role are you considering? And so I'm going to open the participant screen, and Nick, I'm going to let you go first as our special guest.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Nick Mayrand. Where I'm from and where I'm at are generally two different things. But for the purposes of this conversation, from Texas, I'm currently a national vice president assigned to the area of member relations. And future roles that I'm considering, it is not a subject for me currently. I am focused and very busy finishing out this year. But I'm excited to share a little bit of my experience with you today.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Jess, you're co-host, so you're at the top of my participant list. I'm going to put you on the hot spot and then just go down the list.
Beautiful. Jess Anderson from Michigan, currently serving as the 2026 Michigan president. Future roles, that's to be determined. It is an open conversation. I'm not quite as busy as Nick, but there are things to do.
Thank you, Jess. Arby, you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. Arvin Gibbons here, current state president of New York. Weirdly enough, haven't been chapter president yet, so let's see how it goes. And also working on being a national certified national trainer.
Yay. Personal congratulations towards that, Arby, from me. Next up, I got Bobby Joe.
You would make me go next.
It's
I
alphabetical.
darn. My name's Bobby Joe Call. I am from JCI, Michigan, reside in Greater Muskegon of local chapter. I currently serve this year as our state programming vice president and also serve on our local board as a community vice president as well. I think one thing I'm looking forward to is running for local chapter president, the same as RB. We're in the same boat. I've done every few other things but that. So that's my next goal.
Awesome. Thank you. With that, Brandon, are you able to unmute?
Yes, they got a trader out. I just want to let everyone know. But okay, I am Brandon Diller. I am from Michigan, Grand Rapids specifically. So I'm actually on my last month of being on the local board, which is crazy. So soaking that all up, just getting to be a gem, I think as someone put it, general engaged member. Love that. And then not putting too much out there in the ether, but you will see me on the state level continuing. I'm currently the training director, but that's where I'm going to continue to go that path. So
Awesome. Thank you, sir. That will jump to Brielle.
Hello, Brielle from Pennsylvania. I'm currently sitting on as the state national director because we don't have a state chapter here, so we do not have a state president. Future roles I am considering is possibly something in nationals, possibly an MVP.
Awesome. Thank you, Brielle. And Cassie, I'm going to put you on the spot again. I'm treating you like a participant.
Yeah. My name is Cassie Breathen. My answer is a little bit different than most folks. So I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I am JCI USA staff. So I'm a program coordinator, have been with the organization since January of this year. So I'm joining these calls more so to just kind of learn about the organization's election process.
Awesome. And we appreciate you being here. With that, we'll jump to DeMarcus.
Hi, everybody. I'm DeMarcus Evans from JCI Michigan, the Greater Muskegon chapter. I'm the membership vice president for my local chapter as well as the state board now. As far as future roles, I guess that really depends on which organization we ask about.
Very true. But all of this information is good for across the board. So we are happy that you are here, sir. With that, we'll jump to Eric.
Hey, Eric Hyatt here. I'm from Champaign-Urbana in Illinois. I currently serve as JCI USA National Treasurer, and I'm currently a candidate for Deputy National President. And it's great to be here.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you for joining us. With that, we'll jump to John. John, are you able to unmute? No worries. If not, go ahead and throw any information in the chat and I can read it out for you. I know sometimes you're in a place where you can't unmute. With that, we'll jump to McKenna.
Hello, my name is McKenna Grennan, and I'm from the Greater Muskegon chapter in Michigan. I'm currently serving as chapter president for my local chapter of Greater Muskegon. Future roles, undetermined yet. I have a busy 16-month-old, so we will see where that takes.
Well, we appreciate you being here, especially with their 16-month-old. Very, very cute baby if you haven't seen the pictures. So thank you for being here. With that, we'll jump to Megan.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan O'Brien. I am from the Palatine JCs in Illinois, and I currently serve as the 95th state president for Illinois. Future roles, just kind of exploring different things for next year.
Awesome. We appreciate you being here. And Morgan, you're up.
Oh, hey, that's me. I am Morgan Ogden. My answer is similar to Nick. Where I'm from and where I'm at are a little different. I am living in Missouri, but North Carolina JC still. I am JCI USA's Leadership Development Director this year, which is a really, really long way to say that I support our state presidents. And currently, we'll make this call really fun. I'm also a candidate for JCI USA Deputy National President.
Awesome. Congratulations to you too, ma'am. And thank you for joining us. And then I'm going to pop back up because Ashley, you joined. If you want to do an introduction, ma'am.
Hello, Ashley Devers from the Ludington, Michigan chapter, currently serving as Vice President of Management locally, and on the Michigan State Board, I am District Aid Director. Future roles are open, trying to keep an open mind, seeing what's available and seeing where I can help. I love being at the state level. My goals are eventually international, being able to collaborate all around the world and help people. I'm just open to anything right now.
Awesome. Appreciate you being here. And just for propriety's sake, my name is Michelle McGran. I am a Redford JC from the state of Michigan. My current role is I serve on the training task force for JCI USA. I am the primary advisor and a past president for JCI Michigan, and I am a JCI global training mentor. What future role? I am considering 0 future roles besides mentorship. I missed last session because it was my 40th birthday. And so thankfully, Cassie was able to come share her knowledge with you and give me the day off. But what I really enjoy about this organization is the ability to help and mentor and grow other leaders. So I'm going to sit very happily with that, with no name badge, but here to support each and every one of you. And with that, we are going to jump into the topics today. So I like to start with a quote that really kind of sums up, I think, what we're going to talk about today when we're talking about building and leading a team, is that you should surround yourself with only people who are going to lift you higher. And it's kind of a great touch point and for, as we discuss, not only your candidate team, but a lot of these principles are also going to extend when you're out of the candidate stage and you're actually building a team as a leader. So I'm going to welcome Nick back up here to go ahead and cover some of this content. Cool. So the first thing we're going to discuss today is about recruiting your team. And so we're going to talk about the different parts of a support team that you need. And the very first one is your campaign team.
Hey, yeah. Super excited to be here. Just a little bit of background. Michelle and I served as state presidents together. And so when she kind of brought this opportunity, there was a few different topics that she asked if I would train on, and this was one that really stuck out to me. Just with my experience personally, I picked a team that I felt like complemented me well. But there are a couple of things that go into that, right? Your campaign team is your most obvious, your support system, but also goes out, and those are the people with relationships that you don't have will make introductions for you. They're the people that are talking you up in rooms that you're not in, but they're also the people that center you. So there are super key things when you're building a campaign team that typically we want to look for. So building out those teams, somebody that's able to help you with campaign tasks that you're not great at. That was something that was super big for me because I'm not a super social media king. It's people that will help determine your strategy, inform your platform, spread your message, and advocate on your behalf when rooms that you're not in.
100%. And we'll talk about this a little bit more too, but I think here I just want to add a little piece or highlight, I guess, because Nick did say it, is pick people who are different from you. I use this picture on the slide particularly because when I ran for state president, these 2 individuals were members of my campaign team. And many of you on this call know them and know that we're very different, right? But that can help, as Nick said, when you ground you, it's also about providing perspectives that you don't have, right? I'm very process driven, so I picked somebody who was very empathetic to give me that member perspective and show me maybe things that I was missing. And so your campaign team is critical, but there's another team that is as well.
Yeah. Just real quick to touch on that last slide again. Something that Michelle and I had discussed, but we didn't get added to the slide is specifically your campaign manager. Your campaign manager is going to keep you specifically as a candidate in line, but also is somebody that needs to be able to tell you no, is going to be able to share things that maybe you won't receive well from everybody else, and somebody that's going to keep you on task through the process. There are a lot of things that fly around during election season, but somebody that can specifically keep you centered, that can say, hey, you're getting in the weeds on these things. It's time to pull out and remember where we're going with this. Is super important in your campaign manager.
100%.
In your support team, these are the people at home that are going to have your back, right? They may not be active JCs, but they are the people in your lives that are going to make sure that the ship is afloat while you're handling things either in campaign season or when you hopefully eventually get that position that you're running for. So that's your family, your mentors or advisors, past leaders that you rely on, and your local chapter, but your friends outside that are maybe not JCs as well.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit, Nick, about, I want to kind of break this down because I think this campaign team is a little bit more like easier to wrap your mind around, but can you talk a little bit about why having like your family support is so important?
Yeah, especially for me, it was a little different, right? My parents were JCs, so they got it. And not everything's going to go your way in campaign season. Somebody, you're going to schedule the wrong social media post that was supposed to go out on a different day, so now things are all out of whack, and now you're stressing over those things, and you just need somebody to talk to you about it. You need somebody to pull you off that ledge sometimes of spiraling in those things. But also those people that are going to pick up, like I said before, especially with families, some things that might get missed on the home track that, oh my gosh, I was so busy with my campaign, I forgot to plan dinner tonight, right? So having those people in your corner are what's going to make the experience of those growth opportunities when you're running a campaign much easier on you as a candidate.
Yep. And then I want to highlight here this is the parentheses around your advisor. Sometimes we use advisor with a capital A in terms of your title, right? Like when I announced myself, I said that I was primary advisor for Michigan. That is a role. However, many of you have advisors or mentors that is not a capital A advisor, right? It's a little a advisor. These people are valuable too. Again, remember, we talked about your campaign people having different perspectives, but these people have different perspectives. They may know you in a different context if they're not JCs, but if they are JCs and maybe they're older, they've been here before, they have some of that institutional knowledge, right? So this is the group that you can go talk to run things by, ask questions, and sometimes might have a completely different perspective because they are out of the whirlwind that is the current organization or the current campaign season. So don't underestimate those people and how important they can be to you and as you campaign.
Other candidates can be helpful as well, right? We're all kind of in this together. When I was running as MVP, because there's a lot from Michigan here, I'll talk about my relationship with Kaylee. Just because Kaylee and I were both the children of JCs and we're the same age doesn't mean that we really knew each other growing up. But Kaylee and I really got to know each other pretty well through the election season, whether we were just kind of debriefing after we were doing candidates forums and things like that. But knowing that those people are going through the same thing that you're going through, but also it can be for different positions. It doesn't have to just be those people in the exact same position that you're in. It's just nice to be able to have a conversation with that person to be like, hey, I know we're doing this thing and maybe we're doing this thing against each other, but at the same time, we're trying to do what's best for the organization and we all have ideas. And so having that common ground to just be like, man, this is tough and it's going to be fun at the end of it, but they know what you're going through as well.
Yep. And a couple things I want to highlight here is kind of this asterisk piece at the bottom, right? We talk about in this organization about how you have 1 year to lead. However, hopefully you are in this organization for more than 1 year, right? So when you're in the midst of a campaign, especially if it's like a contested campaign, right? Like emotionally, you can get all wrapped up into it, but you need to be able to take a step back and realize that this is a moment in time, right? But the things that you do now may have impacts in the future. And so don't burn bridges. Like even the most contested race doesn't have to be acrimonious, because it just means that there are two people that are interested in the future of the organization, right? Chances are, win or lose whatever this year, may work with this person in the future, and they could be your team, and you're going to have to collaborate with them, right? So learning from your other candidates, both as peers now, maybe for the same role, could be that the relationship you build there transforms next year into different roles, right? Make sure that it's an opportunity to learn from each other, but it's also an opportunity to get support from one another. But just, yeah, a forewarning, because I've seen that before at the state level. And that's not something you want to do again, right? And so that's kind of like this little section. And we talk about just context setting of when we're talking about building teams, what are the teams that you're trying to build? Okay, wave a magic wand. You as a candidate, you've come up with the best campaign team in the world, and you know your support system, you got them all set up. Now you got to start working with them, and we're going to talk about delegation and trust. So why does trust matter?
Well, Michelle, trust matters for a lot of things, right? It's the foundation of not just our relationships, but our influence on how we're trying to get things accomplished, right? If you're not trusted, so your ideals are not believed in. So they're more likely to be influencers. If you're more likely to be trusted and be able to influence others. It helps to inspire others. It's again, the baseline of our relationships is we have a mutual understanding, and we trust each other that what they're saying, and we can take it at face value. But it allows you to achieve your goals when you have the ability to trust others as well. You need to be able to trust your campaign team. You pick those people for a reason, 100%. So being able to believe that they have your best interest in mind, that they're going to be dependable for you, and that they're going to represent you well as part of your team.
Yep. And this is one of, I'm going to put like a star here, right? This is something that is really critical, that extends way past your campaign and your campaign team. I say this all the time, that JCI is built on influence. Remember, everyone here, except Cassie's as a staff member, but the majority of people and the people you're going to be working with, right, are volunteers. If you don't, the only way to get things done is to persuade and influence people that they want to do it. They're not getting paid to be here. They don't, this isn't their highest priority. So whether it's your campaign team or your leadership team or even other members, if you're not able to build that trust and influence with them, then you're dead in the water. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how you build trust.
Yeah, your credibility. Building through consistent actions, being transparent, being genuinely concerned for the well-being of others. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? It's a cliche, it's an old adage, but cliches are cliches for a reason, because most of the time they're true. Credibility fosters trust, providing a solid foundation upon which leaders can inspire and guide their teams. So people are looking to you, those people that you pick on their team, and they say yes because they believe in you. They're going to look to you for guidance, whether that's after delegation or maybe they're trying to take pieces of what you're doing with your campaign to maybe take into the future. Those who consistently support their team by being open about challenges and actively seeking input from all members demonstrates transparency, inclusiveness, which fosters trust and in turn primes the team to be more receptive to their guidance. And empathy. Understanding and addressing the needs and concerns of team members not only builds trust, but also enhances leaders' capacity to influence effectively. When leaders take the time to listen and show that they genuinely care, they create a supportive environment where team members feel valued and understood. You should focus on developing active listening skills and demonstrating genuine care in interactions, regular check-ins, acknowledging achievements, and offering constructive feedback are practical ways to do so. And transparency. Regularly sharing information about goals, challenges, successes helps team members feel included and valued. This encourages a culture of trust where individuals are more likely to be honest and forthcoming in their interactions. For instance, a leader who transparently communicates the reasons behind their decisions can alleviate uncertainty. When team members understand the why behind actions, they are more apt to support and engage with the vision. When people can understand the direction of where they're going, and we see it a lot. Working in education is specifically interesting because young people always want to know why. They understand that it might be important, but why is it important? They understand why something might need to be done in a certain time frame, but like as long as it gets done, who cares, right? Why does it have to be done by this time? But being able to explain those things not only will help you and your team, right? But generally, when we're picking campaign teams, there are people that haven't been in the positions that we're shooting for. So we're bringing those people along and we're showing them an experience that maybe those are things that they have to plan for in the future as well. And consistency. Leaders who consistently follow through on their promises and maintain steady behavior regardless of changing circumstances reinforce their reliability and integrity. This consistency extends to treating all team members fairly and equitably, ensuring that everyone receives the same level of respect and consideration. Such consistency builds a stable environment where team members know what to expect, making them more likely to place their trust in their leadership.
And I want to just take a second here to talk about like the examples in here, right? Like very often I see people on campaign teams, especially because teams as a whole, but campaign teams are unique because it's short term and highly stressful, right? Everything's compressed. Like it feels like the stakes are much higher and one mistake feels much bigger, which is slightly different than once you have a role and you're on a leadership team, but makes all of this more important. You have a shorter time frame to build this trust and influence, and it's happening in a situation that's far more pressured. Each one of these asks or shows examples of how you demonstrate it. Okay. Very often, if you ask a team, any team, but especially a campaign team, like, are you empathetic to your team members? The person's going to say, absolutely. Of course I have empathy for them. But have you very, very rarely are they able to say, okay, but how did you demonstrate that empathy? How do you demonstrate transparency? How do you demonstrate consistency? And are you doing that throughout, right? Because nobody comes in and wants to run a team and is like, you know what, I want to be a jerk to everyone, or I don't want people to trust me, right? But when we're under pressure, our worst behaviors come out. And so kind of taking that breath as you're as you're running your campaign, asking, how are you treating your team members? Are you showing these things? Because a campaign team is also a microcosm of larger, right? And so if you can't do it here, are you going to be able to do it after the fact? Right?
Can I interject?
Of course.
On that, when I set up my campaign team this year, we had the conversation of here's how I know I act when I'm under stress. And one thing I really need from you is to call me out on that in a pretty immediate fashion, right? Like, it's okay. I promise I won't be offended. I'll be apologetic, actually. But this, I know who I am. It's well enough to know that, like, I'm not palatable to everybody when I'm under large amounts of stress. And this is, stressful. So, you know, asking specifically my campaign manager, I was really specific on that too. Like, please call if you guys see this, call it out to me because I really don't want that to be the person I'm presenting.
Yeah.
So please tell me, like, it's okay to be called. It's okay to ask people to call you out.
And that's not to say that like Morgan, to your point, like it's going to happen at some point. It's not an if it happens, it's a when it happens.
Yes.
And picking your campaign manager to be somebody to be like, okay, like remember that attitude that you said you were gonna have at some point, you're having it. So let's put it in check. I was very much in a similar position with now Chief of Staff Cindy, having been state presidents together and getting to know each other, and then working last year together on the trainings task force. I said, hey, these are the things that I'm going to struggle with, and these are the things that I trust you to be able to check me on when we get there. Because the rest of our campaign team wasn't necessarily somebody that I had that friendship with, but it was other people that I knew of their work ethic, and I thought it would be a really good experience to be working with them and show them the other side.
All great points and 100% true, right? That's going back to Nick's earlier point, right? In the section 1, that's why who your campaign chair is can be so critical. You want that person who's going to feel okay, kind of, I mean, confronting sounds like a mean word, but like confronting with the best intentions possible, right? So that relationship becomes really critical during the campaign season.
And moving on to trusting our team is delegation is the biggest demonstration of trust, right? When you put that trust in other people to accomplish those tasks that need to be done. Maybe you need somebody to design or just order a t-shirt that you've already designed because you've gone to 3 different vendors and you don't like what you've done with your own stuff and you just don't have the time for it. But being able to trust those people to accomplish those tasks, micromanaging them after you give them those tasks will absolutely kill that trust. And it tends to sour those relationships when they feel like you're checking in on them too often, right? We've all got deadlines to meet. But if you're going to let somebody do something, let them do it. Don't turn around and then say, hey, I need this every 30 minutes to check in on where that's at. You also cannot run an effective team without delegating. The job is too big. You will burn out. Things will fall through the cracks. And delegation is a critical piece of leadership. Once you get to those positions, as Michelle has already said, how you act as a candidate and running those teams are generally how you're going to react in those situations once you eventually get that position. So understanding that, trust that you built your team for a reason, right? Maybe something happened and it's not happening on your timeline. That's where that empathy comes in of understanding what's actually going on with your team before just being worried about deadlines.
Yep. And you need to know yourself what things that you're okay with delegating and what things that you're not, right? Because you have to be okay at the point that somebody's going to do something that it may not look exactly the way that you wanted it done. And you need to ask yourself, is that okay or is it not okay for me, right? And so you have a choice. You're right. This is your team. This is your campaign. If it's something that there's like only one way to do it, then you need to communicate that when you delegate it, or that's not something that should be delegated. The good thing though is that as if you've built your campaign team and you've chosen people correctly, even when something is done and it's different than what you would have done, a lot of times it's better, right? Like that's the whole thing. If it was, you have a team because you want those different perspectives, you want those different ideas. You don't want it just to come from you. You know, I laugh with my campaign team, like, I am terrible at graphics. I have no idea on things. Like, I can look at something and be like, yeah, I like it. But me trying to describe something, especially in visual language, it's a mess. I'm like, it's like thing, draw like stuff and it's all ugly, right? I've made sure that I had someone on team that had a much better eye than I did. And I could just say, hey, I need something like this. And they would make beautiful graphics or ideas and far more creative than I could have ever come up with. But if I had micromanaged that, for lack of a better word, my shit would have been ugly, right? So you need to know what's okay and what's not. But kind of on the other hand, too.
Yeah, this is something that's super important, right? We delegate trusting that our team is going to accomplish those tasks. But however you want to check in with your team. My team last year, we liked to have meetings, and they were quick, 15-minute. Hey, where are we at? How did this last forum go? But also like these are the tasks that have been delegated out. Where are we at with it? And it's a quick, maybe every couple of weeks, depending on the level of campaign that you're running. Maybe you say, hey, this campaign's going to take a while. Maybe we just meet once a month, or we start out at a couple of weeks, and then once we're in the groove, then we're just chatting once a month to know where we're at with things. But it allows you to see the progress without stressing every minute at whether or not it's getting done.
Yeah, my previous teams I liked having individual like touch points about specific tasks, and then every once in a while having a full group team meeting because I felt that that provided the team, they could see how their individual pieces fit into the whole and supported like the overall goal and idea, but it also allowed them to check in with each other to make sure that there was alignment, right? Because, you know, if you're in a silo, sometimes things start going sideways and all of a sudden, like, it's not cohesive. But all team meetings all the time was too much for the people that I had, right? It kind of goes back to like, where's that transparency with the setting expectations when you start your team? What makes sense for the individuals on your particular campaign? Because everybody's going to be a little bit different. And every candidate's different, right? But this is kind of the summation here, right? If you can't, your campaign team, this was what, like 4, 5-ish people that you handpicked. If you can't delegate to them and build trust with your handpicked people, how are you going to delegate to a leadership team in which maybe you didn't, right? You can't, what the behaviors that exhibit on your campaign team are kind of indicative of when for larger. And so practice those skills with your team so that when you win a role, whether it's this particular campaign or not, that you are a better leader walking into that team. Because you're going to have to delegate. The job only gets bigger. I hate to tell you. That's the joy of leadership, right? Gets harder. But as we said before, everybody in this organization, for the most part, is a volunteer. And so influencing really comes down to how do you motivate them, right? You've delegated tasks. That's the big fear everybody has, right? Like, I'm going to delegate this and it's not going to get done and I can't make it get done. right? And that's really where influence and motivation comes true. So
Yeah. In motivation, we kind of talked about it a little bit already, but align what you're asking for with what the person has in skills, interests, and values. Tie it back to the greater version. Show how this one smaller thing is part of the larger whole. Doing so will enhance their sense of purpose and increase overall engagement, right? Kind of a little bit earlier when we were talking about transparency. Understand that like you pick these people and maybe they don't know why you pick them, but having those conversations and the things that you ask them to do, um, and that they understand why, because it's real fun to do something, especially if you've got a campaign team full of your friends. But if that's not somebody that you're super close to or you talk to all the time, maybe you just see like, oh, they've got me doing this crazy thing, and I'll do it because I said yeah, I'll be on your team, but I don't really know why. Clarity, making it easier, transparency and communication. Define expectations, show what done looks like. Providing the necessary resources and support ensures volunteers can contribute effectively without unnecessary barriers.
right. And this is one that just like we do this all the time, right? How many times have you been asked to complete a task and you have no idea what they're looking for, right? Like it's been really vague, or right, counting your figures, or all of a sudden you've been asked to put together, I don't know, a presentation and they didn't give you any of the background materials or any graphics, right? On campaign team, put together my website. Okay, do you have a URL? Do you have images that you want to use? I've had, do you have a bio? Right? Should I just make up your history? Right? Everyone here is a volunteer. The harder you make it, the less they're going to want to do it, and the easier it is to walk away or just say, I couldn't, right? It's your job to provide that clarity and make it easier.
Yeah, provide growth. People want to be challenged. They want to they want it to be interesting and provide value to their lives. Volunteers are more motivated when they gain skills, knowledge, and personal development from their experience. Providing feedback and chances to take on new challenges keeps them engaged and invested. Um, I know some of you have maybe heard me say this before, when talking about a lot of the community service aspect of this organization. And the community service that we do is great, but I pay dues to this organization to grow, and I could do community service for free, right? So providing people those opportunities to take on new challenges, something that maybe they don't get an opportunity to handle in their personal life, in their local chapter, or in their professional life, but it's something they've always been super interested in, and giving them that opportunity to grow and kind of tweak things, right? That's delegating the task, but not delegating 2 days before something needs to get done. Having a plan in place for your team to know that, hey, this might take a little bit for some people to learn, not having had the experience before, but they have the ability to go ahead and learn.
Yeah. And I want to highlight here what Nick said earlier about a lot of times when you pick people from your campaign team, they have not had that role, right? Being on a campaign team in and of itself, in many cases, is a growth opportunity. I know that, like, for example, the first, I say, real state role that I had, like I was a committee member or something. I was a committee member for the training team on the state, which at that time was making sure the rooms had markers and a projector, right? It wasn't exactly like a leadership role, right? But someone from across the state asked me to be their campaign chair, and I was terrified. I had not really run a campaign. I had seen some, and I never really considered a state role. And that was kind of working on that team ended up being, once they won that election, they asked me to serve on their leadership team. And that was the start of my pathway in Michigan, right? So these growth, whether it's an individual task or being on the campaign team itself, like these growth opportunities really do matter. It's a stepping stone. And so, what can you do to keep them engaged and challenge just enough, not overwhelmed, right? But to the point of pushing a little bit so that you may understand they have those capabilities, but you're showing them and letting them realize that they have those capabilities, right? And that keeps people motivated.
Yeah, providing relationships. You hear it over and over again in JCI USA, people join people. Strong relationships create a supportive environment, increase satisfaction, and enhance retention. People feel obligation towards those that they have relationships with. And a lot of those people on your campaign team you've always interacted with in some way, right? And you had to go make that ask as a candidate for them to join that campaign team, and they said yes to you. And we talked about it earlier. Maybe it was because they had a great interaction with you, working with you in the past. Maybe they've always just kind of been interested because you've crossed paths as leaders, but not necessarily been directly engaged. But those people saw something in you, and this is an opportunity. A lot of times, those people that are joining your team don't necessarily know each other either. So this is where we start to really connect people, especially for national offices. You connect people across the nation that maybe haven't had that opportunity to join, but giving them one more reason to stick around or one more resource that they wish they had in somebody else.
So you have your team, you have been trying to build trust, you've delegated stuff, you're trying to motivate them, but guess what? There's always going to be conflict, right? Whether it's something as simple as you have differing ideas on strategy or what social media message needs to be put out, whether you're developing your platform and coming with the wording for it, there's a disagreement. There could be disagreements about somebody not completing a task at the time that you thought that it should be done, right? When we have volunteers, conflict can feel scarier, but it's not, it's inevitable. And so learning how to deal with conflict that may come up, especially on your campaign team, is important. So here are some strategies. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, conflict's not always a bad thing. I often refer to conflict as an opportunity for growth. But I thrive in conflicts. I enjoy those conversations, right? And finding my weird troubleshooting brain in disagreements wants to find a way to resolution, and either everybody's happy or everybody's equally unhappy. Uh, but kind of taking a step back when those conflicts arise, take that deep breath to calm your emotions, take a step back, analyze the situation, and decide whether or not it's worth the fight. Some of you know me well on this call, and that is something that has been a big growth opportunity for me in the past. Of when I was younger, I wanted to die on every hill. Now I know that my energy can be better spent, maybe dying on a couple of hills and letting the rest of it go. Starting with, go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say, and find out the root cause of why you're really upset. The amount of conflict that happens over, and that like you're fighting about this, but that's not really why you're upset. You're upset over here, right? And so if you don't understand what you're really upset about, it's hard to determine whether what are you going to be addressing, or is the problem even really a problem? Is it a self problem, right?
Yeah, is it pride, is it ego, or is it something that's actually wrong? And so taking that time to step back and look at what actually is causing that problem, what's causing those reactions.
I like you said ego here too, because when you're a candidate, right, and you're relying on your candidate team, everything feels more personal. That's your name on the line. You are asking people, I mean, you're asking people to judge you, right? Like that's what voting kind of is, right? And so everything feels much bigger than it would normally. So your emotions are heightened. And so your emotional reactions are heightened. And so small things that in a normal everyday would not bother you suddenly will on a campaign, right? So this is important. Taking a deep breath here, because you're going to say, oh, I'll let it water off a duck's back, right? Like it'll roll right off. I'm telling you, it doesn't. Like you're going to be surprised.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then moving forward through it is starting with direct conversation. Resist the urge to discuss or complain to someone else. Assume everything you say is going to become public knowledge. Do you want them to hear what you said about them to someone else? And a big piece of this is that support team, right? Maybe not necessarily your campaign team, because you're choosing people that are maybe from different places, and maybe you work well with them, but you don't know them as well, so you don't know who their friends are. And so this is where your support team, those people at home, who may or may not be JCs, but those people that you know you can rely on, that you have a relationship outside the organization, will really come into play when you're struggling and needing some perspective even before having that conversation with those individuals directly. Ask questions and assume positive intent. We talk often in this organization that everybody's just trying to do the best they can. And so maybe somebody's asking a question, or coming into a conversation, asking questions and assuming the person didn't mean to do something that was going to harm you or hurt you or create a problem for multiple people. Maybe they had a legitimate question and now it's throwing everything off because nobody thought of that one question. Michelle, I see you leaning in.
Yeah, the best thing I ever got out of crucial conversations is the phrase, is the story I'm telling myself is blank. What is, that mean? That's saying to me this, what's your perspective, right? And that's opening up, the story I'm telling myself is you didn't do the social media task because you didn't care about it. I know that's probably not true. What's the real story? And it opens up the conversation in a way that's not as personal and allows you to say, like, demonstrate that you're assuming positive intent and you're asking them for their side of the story.
Yeah. Find agreement. Even in contested campaigns, people agree on something. Even if it's just to make this organization better, use that as a point to find solution or compromise to the situation. Enlisting support. If a solution cannot be found, enlist help from higher up. Is that the election committee? Is it your advisor? Escalate intelligently and only when the first steps didn't reach a remedy. So maybe something happens that you don't agree with as a candidate, and maybe there's a direct conversation that happens between candidates that are competing for the same role. But again, going back to maybe an election rule got overread, or maybe it was interpreted differently. Not everything is ill intent. If we're trying to kill people for a role in the JCs, we're fighting about the wrong things. I think nobody here is here to take this organization down. Going back to the positive intent and that assumption, right? Nobody is here because they hate JCI. and they don't want this to exist anymore. So they've got to run for every position possible to take us all down. And that brings us to the final one of get over it. It doesn't mean forget it, but it does mean not allowing it to continue to fester. Just like nobody is here to take us all down, this organization is not worth your mental health or well-being in any way. So if we continue to harp on those things and we let it eat at us at night, and so then we're getting up for work the next day and we don't feel rested because we're still thinking about that thing that happened 2 weeks ago. That's not good for any of us either.
None of this is life-threatening. Should not.
I have a really great story for letting it go. So during my MVP race, Michelle was my campaign manager, and I panicked, took my headshots. If you've ever been there, you've been there in the yard. And I did have on a crop top and a blazer. However, I cropped the photo so you couldn't tell that I had on a crop top. Well, when the website that we created launched, Michelle went in. She liked it when I posted it on Facebook. There were a couple other interactions. It was up for what, like 45 minutes. We realized that when we shared it, the platform uncropped the photo. And so my campaign website launch was me in a crop top and a blazer and basketball shorts. That went out to everyone. And so sometimes you guys, you just gotta laugh at it because I mean, not everyone saw it, I'm sure. Initially, my stomach just dropped to the ground. And I was like, Michelle, did you see this? And she was like, it's great. And I was like, it's not. It's so far from great right now. So yeah, sometimes you just gotta let it go. It can't all be that serious, right? It's okay. Maybe don't post the crop top on purpose, but like it happens. We're people.
Yeah. We learned that you crop it, then you put it on the stuff. You don't put it on stuff and then crop it there because as the format changes, so does the crop.
It was really a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
So you're all welcome. Now you know how to avoid that for yourselves in the future too.
Right. And it's important, right? Like it's in that moment, it's really easy to get worked up and be like, oh my God, everything's ruined, right? But at the end of the day, like, first of all, it's a funny story. It's always going to be funny now. But it also like, hey, you didn't forget it happened. Now you know moving forward, like how to crop stuff or be, intentional about it. But you also just kind of, after it's fixed the next day, be like, okay, moving on. We're going to reset from that, right? It would be very easy on a campaign team, and I've seen this happen on teams, is somebody makes a mistake like that, and all of a sudden they're not trusted anymore. Nothing's delegated to them. And whether anything is said or not, people feel that. And now you've created a culture of distrust on your campaign team and teams in general, and you're not going to recover from it, right? So letting it go is not just for you, but it's also for everyone else.
Yeah. I think a lot of times in campaign season, we forget that being a JC is a safe place to fail. And that nobody's going to die and nobody's going to get fired over it. But it is one of those things because nobody asks you to run for the positions that you run for. It's much more personal, just like you're asking people to judge you. You put yourself out on that stage because you feel like you want to step into this position, and you feel like honestly you've earned it when you're running for these positions. You've earned the ability to go do those things, and so having that confidence in yourself that when something goes wrong and something's just not perfect, it's still okay and we're still learning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then we're going to talk about working across differences a little bit in this one, specifically virtual differences here. I use this picture simply because all of these people here are in different countries and we're on a team with me. And this was the first time that we met. over 8 months after working together on a team, right? JCI, we are all distributed across. There are people from multiple states here working together or on this call together, but working on a team comes with its own specific challenges for that.
Yeah. It is good to have those differences, right? We don't want to create an echo chamber. Picking a team in which everyone sees things the same way or has the same background is short-sighted and will hurt you in the long run. Build teams with varied experiences, varied perspectives, varied backgrounds, and varied skill sets. You may think that you are lowering the possibility for conflict or increasing efficiency, but what you're really doing is creating groupthink. And that's when everybody in a group thinks the exact same way, and there's no perspective that is brought differently. And so one person says something and everybody agrees and nobody thinks about what could go wrong with it.
Well, and I think you're one that's really can talk to this particularly like in the context of JCI USA, Nick, because you've been, for all intents and purposes, a member of 3 different states in very different regions that have very different like norms and perspectives on the organization. Can you talk a little bit about like those differences and why it may be important to have regional differences on a team?
Yeah, especially at a national campaign level. Even when I was building my team last year, I there were no two people from the same state. There were no two people from the same region. My campaign manager was from California, and then I had 2 campaign team members, one from Michigan and one from Wisconsin. And some may say that's the same region, but Wisconsin and Michigan vary greatly, even though they're just across the lake from each other, especially in the JCs and operationally even. So those were people that I had the experience, not just living in multiple places, but having been able to take on different national committee roles that I had an opportunity to work with, either as my role as a state president with my campaign manager Cindy, or when I was a membership coach on the membership team with Amanda from Wisconsin, or Bobby Joe was on my campaign team, and we met at a couple of conventions. And I texted Michelle and I said, "Hey, I seen Bobby Joe's energy, and I've seen her drive. I think I'd really love to have her on my campaign team. What do you think about this?" Um, and Michelle gave Bobby Joe a glowing review, but also like just seeing her energy and newer perspective when a couple of us had been around the organization for a while, but bringing that new energy in to see where here's where we've been, but where are we going, and being able to get that perspective.
Yeah, and I'll say this is true too on a state campaign, because I know some of you, especially some of the people from Michigan here, talking about that your next goal is a state role, right? Even there are differences, very big differences in the chapters within the state of Michigan too, right? Greater Muskegon does not do things the same way that Redford does things, the same way that Grand Rapids does things. And when you're taking a role and you're a candidate, you're asking to represent the whole. And so if you don't know those perspectives and you don't have someone that can help educate you and speak to you about it, then even if you win, you get that name badge, you're going to be at a disservice, or you're going to be hurting if you don't have a little bit of insight in that, right? Building your platform, I want to know how others do stuff, what they value, what's most important, right? Each chapter has a different culture, each state has a different culture, each country has a different culture if you're looking internationally, right? The more you can know, the better that you can serve. And I like here, and Bobby Joe said, learning on Nick's campaign team helped me understand my campaign team and when I ran for programming at a state level, right? This has an impact on people. It does matter. It's a growth opportunity for that individual, but it also creates ripples across the organization. So the more that you can have these conversations and you'll be more well-rounded, your platform will serve better if you avoid groupthink.
And how do you navigate differences is trust. The same behaviors that build trust are what allows teams made of different people to work together effectively. Asking questions, listening actively, valuing differences, building relationships, and showing appreciation. Your campaign team has one core thing in common, and that is that everybody on your campaign team believes in you. And so having those conversations to encourage them to talk about how they came to experience you or what it was that excites them about being a part of your campaign team, because many of those people have at the very core of it the same reason, but it may be a different side of you as a leader that they appreciate. And so being able to let them share those experiences, and it allows those other people on your team to get to know each other, to know what they value in your leadership as well.
Oh, I skipped ahead to virtual team dynamics here. And so kind of previewed that before on this one too, right? But these are all behaviors. And a lot of times these are things that we maybe are easier to demonstrate in person, but you're most likely going to be working with your campaign team remotely, right? The whole point of having people with different perspectives from different regions, from different states, means that chances are your team meetings are not going to be in person. Even within the state of Michigan, Bobby Joe does not want to drive 4 hours to the east side of the state or even the center of the state for a meeting multiple times over and over again on top of other JC stuff, right? So you need to be able to build these relationships and build trust on a virtual platform pretty quickly.
I would have met you in the middle, Bobby Joe.
Yeah, with DeMarcus riding shotgun.
Building trust and relationships remotely. While more difficult, building trust and relationships via remote communication is possible. Some best practices include create space for interpersonal communication. Don't just launch into an agenda. People need an opportunity to know each other. Have team touch points and individual touch points. Practice the same skills you use in person: active listening, empathy, communication. And so that's where it really comes in of these people don't know each other coming from different regions, and giving them an opportunity to have those conversations and encouraging them to talk to each other outside of the meetings, encouraging collaboration when you're delegating things, really helps bring those people together.
Yeah. I want to use a little example, even though it's not a campaign. So I was asked to help with a training academy that was actually overseas. And we spent 6 months preparing with online meetings, like preparing content, making edits to all the trainings. You had a training partner that you were going to go on site with, but all of us were from different countries. My training partner was from Belgium, right? We weren't meeting up to go over PowerPoints together. And although like we had training partners, there were multiple sets. We all had to be aligned doing the same thing, right? So that all participants got the same example or same experience, basically. And we were long meetings every month. One thing that the head trainer did that I loved was, instead of jumping right into, which we had a lot of work, right? Like it seemed very easy, could have been like, okay, here's the list of tasks, what needs to be done. She spent the first half hour, 45 minutes with us talking about like, what were our values? How do we take jokes? How comfortable are we with teasing one another, right? Like all of these weird things, but they're things that you pick up in person, right? From knowing someone. But we didn't have that chance, and we were going to have to be on site and operate quickly. And I can honestly say that when we did meet in person, it felt like we already had been, like, we were a well-oiled machine working together, and we're able to jump into some of that content stuff much easier. Also, it made us more comfortable, you know, I don't want to say criticizing, but like speaking up when there were differences in opinions on what to do. Kind of translating that to a campaign, if you don't have that relationship, if you're not able to develop it virtually, when somebody suggests something, maybe you disagree, not, you don't always feel like super comfortable or confident in speaking up and saying, actually, I think we should do something else, right? And if it's your campaign, you want those voices to speak up. You don't want people holding reservations back. So it can seem like a waste of time, especially, like I said, candidate, like it's a very short time frame, high emotions. Like it's real easy to feel like, oh my gosh, we have not enough time to get everything done, and this is a waste of time. I'm telling you, building that relationship is not a waste of time. It is an investment in creating a better product, a better campaign, and a better, well-running, effective team, right? It is part of the process. And keep losing my mouse. Sorry, you guys. That's what this pause is. It's me trying to find my mouse again to go to the next thing. Okay. So I didn't change the activity here, but that's kind of the end of the content. What I want y'all to do, because I think it's really important.
Michelle, can I ask a question before we get to the next slide? I know we talked about Bobby Joe being on my campaign team last year, but has anybody else been a part of a campaign team in the past? And what's something that they picked up from those campaigns if you have been a part of those teams?
I love that, sharing best practices. DeMarcus, I see your hand.
So I was actually on a campaign team for a candidate for state president a couple years back. And I'd say probably the most important thing I learned that year was the importance of preparation when it comes to public speaking, especially when you're not good at public speaking.
You did a great job. And I will say for here, it was like my president race started contested, and DeMarcus was on the other campaign team, but he did his intro speech and he didn't even know, because I'm going to speak his praises here because he's not going to. That year, we did our candidate caucus in our state, meet the candidates at Mid-America. So he was told he was going to have to introduce a candidate, and thinking that it was all people that he knew within the state. And they were like, well, actually, here's a bunch of national people, including people running for national president that you don't know. Go.
Oh, wow.
It went great.
Right? But I like that, be prepared. And it was a growth opportunity. But did you feel better after you did it?
I did. Well, aside from the instant relief of nerves leaving my body, I left like leaving with a lot of things in my mind. Like, okay, like next time this comes up, I can do this to improve. Like I can use this to grow in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
It's great.
I did a little bit of campaign managing for a district director a handful of years ago, and I learned a lot in that preparation is important. And the district director won, but I thought that there was a lot more that could have been done. And so I think the biggest thing I took out of it was like, what is the plan? I know being on the campaign team slash campaign manager, like I was expecting some directive from the person running, as I would set that tone if that was me. But maybe that's because I'm just like super particular. But the like I learned that because I was trying to set the tone for them. But also, maybe there's a couple things, right? Like that person could have chosen me because that is my skill set. Um, Also knowing that that wasn't their skill set. But additionally, what could I bring to the table that without like running over that person? And I think it was very much so. Um, the diversity of chapters that I was able to reach. And I think that is so important. And I know we touched on that. I think that's the hardest thing. As someone that like will continue to like go forward in this organization, that's the hardest thing to like stomach naturally because the people that are close to you are close to you sometimes. And so that can be very difficult to reach across chapter lines, state lines, whatever. But I think that like goes to show the importance of that from my experience at least.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Arby, so weirdly enough, we had a contested election on the chapter level 2 years ago. So our party turned into our own campaign team. It turned into a collaborative effort with design, certain inputs, and choice of words with our mission, vision, etc. Right. And I like that too. I mean, I really do feel at least, you're a candidate, you go in, you have this idea, right? But if you're picking people on your team and are able to build that relationship, it should be collaborative and it should inform your platform, the way you communicate your mission and vision, so maybe, as you said, design some of the way your campaign feels and looks, which is communication in and of itself, right? It's not that your core changes, like your values don't necessarily change, but if you have a team that can help you like connect the dots differently or word it a little bit different, or again, that makes the whole better. That's pretty cool. It turned into as part of the whole there as well. Anyone else?
I was on a campaign team a few years ago, and one of the biggest pieces I think I caught from it was um, this was before I ran a national campaign or anything like that, right? And like within the state, it's kind of in North Carolina, it's kind of expected who's going next because we're set up that way. And so, like, running for state president isn't exactly a shock to people for the most part coming out of your position. But with it, it was watching the person I was on the campaign team for. This mattered to them, so it was a personal thing, right? And they were very serious about it. And they wanted to make sure it was professional, wanted to make sure it was by the book, wanted to, all of this. And it was making sure to remind them that like you get to show people that you're a person, right? We love people and like let them see the human in you, right? Because that's how you got here in the first place because we all saw it. And that's guided, most of the campaigns that I've run for myself too, right? Is the best speech advice I ever got translates into anything within the JCs. And if any of you tell Scott that I said that this advice came from him, I'm going to deny it until I die. But it was, you're not going to get up on stage and change anyone's life with your speech. So just tell your story. And that takes, oh, I forgot. He's not getting the link. He's not registered. Um, but and that took all of the pressure off. And so that's for anything. That's for your campaign. That's for any public speaking thing. That's for if you are DeMarcus and you decide to randomly on the spot show up for Master Speak Up, right there in the room, right? And then kill it in front of everybody. It's for that, right? Like get up there and just say what it is that you need to say because you really aren't going to change anybody's life. Maybe you will. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe someone's better than me, and I hope you all are. But the campaigns are the same way, right? Like make sure you're authentic and you're true to yourself. And it's hard to run a campaign that you don't also believe in. And people will see that because it'll go back to that consistency, right? Like your message won't be consistent, your branding won't be consistent, right? Because it's not rooted in that truth of view. So just keep that. Yes, he did. He did tell you that. That's his favorite advice to give out. To be fair, I thought I was special, and I am not. So
That's funny.
And then for me, I haven't actually been on on a team to like for a
Mhm.
campaign, but the various campaigns I've ran at the local, state, and national level, when selecting people for a team, I think what really brings out the most in you is having people that really kind of like challenge the way you think, right? They try to when you want to go this far, they tell you, you know what, you can go even farther, right? And they push you through the process. So like as I've evolved in this organization, I've started to try to pick people that will bring that out into me and like to be that second set of ideas to push me forward and challenge my own beliefs as well.
That's a good point, right? Like, I mean, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but for my own campaign team, like I'm very much like, did my campaign like process. And the person that ran my team was all about empathy. And sometimes too far in empathy, but I'd go too far in process, right? And so, Eric, to your point, like having someone that kind of brings you back to the center who can give you a different perspective or idea or like way of looking at something when you have your blinders on. And sometimes the person when you don't think that you can do it that's pushing you to be like, no, really you can, or this is a good thing. You should send your message like this, right? Like we again, you're putting your name out there. It feels very personal. Having another voice on your team saying, no, I think this is important. You can do it is important too.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
having that support, a lot like being in the middle of a year in a leadership position, in the middle of a campaign, um, one thing might go wrong here or there. Maybe you're just exhausted, and having those people that have your back on your team, and building that strong team together, which is why it's so important to create that trust and build those relationships amongst your team. Is there's going to be a point that it feels like I don't know why I signed myself up for this. But having those people that are in your corner remind you of the reasons that you're doing it, and the impact that you've already had on them, that you're just trying to continue and spread.
I do want to highlight something. Oh, go ahead, Megan. I did
Yeah,
say.
I was gonna say I served on NVP Dawn Stengel's campaign year when she ran, and I think the biggest thing that I learned on her campaign is thinking on your toes. I think as a candidate, you have these great ideas, and Dawn was full of great ideas, and they just kind of one after another after another. And so as a campaign manager, you're trying to think, okay, how can we make this idea become something realistic versus this big dream. And I think that was kind of like I think you're not to be like, oh, this might be too big of a something that we're working towards. How can we like pull it back to the ground for like the everyday member and make it something realistic for everyone to kind of imagine happening or actually implementing too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I want to add to that because it kind of goes along with what I was going to say too here is like campaign season happens in the middle of a year, and 90 to 95% of the time the candidate has a role that they are trying to do and execute, right? Like we have two candidates who are announced on candidacy on this call, and both of them have a role as well that's going on throughout the campaign run. And then you have people on their teams that also have a variety of roles and stuff like that too. So, the ability to make things practical and manage those tasks, and it becomes like the delegation piece comes into play here, but it also comes into picking somebody who can say, that's a great idea, we're going to run with that, and at the same time say, I see where you're going, but we're already focused on this. Why don't we do this instead? Right? Still executing the vision, but keeping everybody from getting burned out or having a campaign that's going like this, right? Like squirrel new ideas all the time. Because when you're excited, you're passionate about this organization, but remember, like, it's not life threatening, but it shouldn't be life threatening. We're not trying to burn anybody out or mess them up while we're doing this, right? It's all volunteer. We're in it to make the world a better place. Okay. I want to mention one other thing, and I don't mean to be a downer here, but I've seen this happen on campaigns too. And it's one thing we didn't really put in the slides here. But sometimes, and this happens more at the state level, I would say, than the national level, just because of the variety of positions. But at least in the state of Michigan, we have a lot of appointed roles. We have a board of like 30 people, right? So you do a lot of appointments, right? And I've seen people get others on their campaign team by promising them a position if they win. And I have to tell you here that is, I highly recommend to not do that. Okay. For one, you are making promises and making decisions without having a full set of information. And you may find that you asked them to be on your campaign team, and now this is the first time that you've really worked with them closely, and suddenly you realize they're not going to be a good fit, but you've already feel like you promised them. I've also seen so you don't, like, you put them there because you feel obligated, and it's not best person for best seat. I've also seen where all they wanted was the promise, and then they have that and they lose motivation for the tasks, right? They're not working towards, and that's probably more in uncontested races where it's a little bit safe, but like even in an uncontested race, like stuff still needs, it may not be a persuasive campaign, but it's still an educational campaign. It's still a campaign, right? So stuff still needs to be done. So do not, if you can help, do not promise positions to people when they're to be on your campaign team. It will bite you.
Michelle, I've got a story from my youth, if you will, because I've seen those things firsthand. And I think we all have, but because we have leaders that are a little bit earlier in their JC careers or looking to other opportunities, just be wary of committing support because somebody promises you something as well. In this organization, some people are going to beg, borrow, and steal because this organization is tied to their ego, and the positions that they get in this organization impacts how they feel about themselves. Not that we shouldn't feel good about the work that we do, but not everything goes our way every day, and that's okay. So for those leaders that are earlier in their JC career, just be weary of those conversations as well, because sometimes you could promise your support to somebody and all goes well and that person gets elected, and then maybe that person isn't who you thought they were when they made that promise, or maybe that promise doesn't get fulfilled.
And not for nothing, nationally, all these appointments have to be approved, right? They're approved. Your big appointments are approved at SPR for interested parties. So the BOD will approve those appointments, which means you cannot guarantee an appointment before a vote. So don't make promises you can't keep.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it kind of goes back to also that, like, 1 year to lead, it's not really 1 year. I remember a few years ago getting a phone call from someone who was just irate because they felt that they were promised a role and that didn't come through. And it burned that relationship to now people that were like working together on a team. Suddenly there was so much conflict, they couldn't work together, and it ended up like poisoning their relationship forever But of course, people get drawn in, and it became like a big thing for a couple of months at the start of a year when the team should be coming together and building their plans and setting the foundation for achieving their goals, right? An offhand comment was, it was 6 months ago, they were buddy buddy, and they felt like it was promised, and then things changed, right? Sometimes it's not even like that you suddenly felt that they weren't worthy. Circumstances changed or something like that. A vote didn't come through externally, right? But it can, whether it's the wrong person does get the spot or they don't get the spot, it can have an impact. And so just kind of thought it was important to talk about here so that you don't fall into that pitfall, right? Any other like best practices? If not, then I'm also going to open it up for questions here, right? As we talk about, these sessions are for you. They're to help you feel more prepared to be a candidate, whether that's this year, next year, or 5 years down the line, because many of you do have like 5 years left. So, right, what questions do you have? You have a bunch of past leaders at all different levels of this organization. Let's help you.
Everybody's an expert, Michelle. We did a great job.
DeMarcus, go ahead.
All right, so kind of backpedaling a few slides to the one where it talked about micromanaging, and then a couple more slides where it talked about following up.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I learned really quickly in one of my past jobs is it's a very thin line between following up and micromanaging. What kind of tips do you have to help make sure you're not crossing that line from like productive following up to micromanaging?
So
Nick,
with
you want
that,
to go first? Yeah.
yeah, I think that's knowing your team. Um, and I when I put a team together, um, there were very much boundaries set with Cindy, my campaign manager, of hey, if I'm not doing something, at times I'm gonna need you to micromanage me because I'm gonna be so busy, I'm gonna forget to do this thing, and then I'm gonna promise it's gonna come to you tomorrow, and then you're gonna be texting me tomorrow asking where it's at. Um, and so being that honest, number one, is a candidate with your campaign team of how you operate, right? Morgan talked about it earlier of this is I'm going to apologize for the person that I am because I can't avoid it. And then but also having those conversations with your team. If you're going to delegate to somebody and you don't know their work style as well, asking them, hey, like understanding we're all part of a team, we're all trying to reach this goal together. I do have to follow up just so I know where things are at. What is that threshold that can I text you every couple of days, or can you give me a deadline to reach out to you if I don't have something that I'm looking for?
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that is sometimes putting it into context of how that task that you're asking them to do fits into a larger whole, which provides the why you need it for the deadline. Like if I ask you to do a graphic and say I need it by next week, if I say, hey, can you do this graphic? I need it by next week so that way I can give it to Nick to put on the website because it needs to go live in 2 weeks. Right? It no longer is an arbitrary deadline. It shows, kind of how it's part of something that may have a hard and fast deadline or something bigger that needs to happen, right? If you can provide that why or that explanation, and it also, like, obligation doesn't always mean a bad thing, right? If people want to do things and help their friends. If I say, like, I need this because of X, Y, or Z, or someone needs it, your relationship with Nick, as well as your relationship with me, means that you'll feel more motivated to get that graphic done. So you're not letting me down and not holding Nick back, right? so some of that helps a little bit. Brielle, I saw your hand.
No, I was just gonna give some advice as well,
Yeah.
but Nick got it covered.
Okay.
He stole my words out of my mouth.
I was going to say any of this is like this is open discussion. So if you have stuff like some feedback, best practices, we're all learning from each other too. The other thing I'll say is like to ask, as Nick said, ask working styles, but write it down somewhere. I don't care if it's a Google sheet that everybody on your team has access to, but it's people have the best intentions. They say yes, but then, you know, life happens. This is their sixth, seventh, ninth priority. And suddenly they can't remember if they promised it to you Wednesday or if you really need it by next Wednesday. Having something that someone can reference back provides that clarity and that consistency in dates that can really help.
We did a spreadsheet because we had our call. We had lots of ideas. We all have lots of ideas, and I love ideas because I also have lots of ideas. But again, they have to live somewhere, right? If they don't live somewhere, they don't exist. For me personally, so we ended up making a spreadsheet, which also helped with delegation because members of the campaign team were able to like go in, and if there was something that really they loved to do or loved to create or really spoke to them, they could just be like, I would love to take this on. Which makes it a lot easier to delegate when you have folks that are active and engaged and like want to sign up to do stuff like that. So that's what we did. We just did a little Google sheet in a folder.
Awesome. Got another question, DeMarcus, or a follow up on it?
Oh no, I was gonna say thanks, everybody.
Okay. I was gonna say, I just saw you on mute, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't like stomping on you or anything. Does anybody else have any questions? None? Okay. Well, I say this all the time after every one of these, but human nature says that I'm going to hit stop record. We're going to end this meeting. And later tonight, tomorrow, on your drive to work this week, you're going to say, you know what? I wish I had asked X, Y, and Z, or I wish I knew more, could find more resources on this. Don't hesitate to reach out. This is session 3 of 6. Hopefully, we will see you again in 2 weeks. But between now and then, you can always email, text, Facebook, message, WhatsApp, whatever. And I'll try to get you an answer as soon as possible, right? You don't have to wait for 2 weeks to get your questions answered. It's campaign season, whether or not you're going to actually certify and announce, or if you're just thinking things through for a future run, it's good to get the answers now. Okay. So everyone here, if I don't know the answer, I can connect you. You can reach out to, I'm going to guess all of you will take a phone call or a message from each other. We are all in this together. Please don't hesitate to get help and ask the questions you have. Sound good? Awesome. With that, I will say thank you so much, y'all. Let's stop the recording here.